Welcome to Reaching Out. My name is Gregory Floyd, President Local 237 Teamsters. Today our guest is Congressman Jose Serrano from the 16th Congressional District in the Bronx. Congressman, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor. It's a pleasure.
I just want to say this was an election of historic proportions. You want to just give us your reactions?
Well, I think what happened is, you're right, the turnaround was dramatic. I mean, what we have here is a situation where the truth never got out. Now, you deal in the labor movement. Sure. You know how many times you know what the truth is,
yes,
and somebody else is presenting the untruth, and you have to deal through that. And in your case, most of the time you get the truth out. In our case, we didn't. People didn't know, for instance, that President Obama, and therefore the Democrats, had given most working class Americans a tax break, a tax reduction.
Tell us how that happened.
Well, that happened in part of the different legislation and packages that were put in, and people were actually paying less taxes than they were paying before. Secondly, the Republicans, if I was to be impartial, yes, which is very hard for me to do right now or ever on this issue, if I was to be impartial and just analyze the Republican strategy, it was brilliant, because what it did is it went out and twisted the truth around to where people began to believe, and did believe, what they were told. For instance, when you have a health care bill that says that when your child is 22 years old, still in college, or unemployed, getting out of college, that now that person can stay on your health insurance till that person is 26, that's huge. That's going to help the middle class that voted against us in an incredible way. But that message somehow never got out. Secondly, on the health care plan, when you know that you cannot be turned down for health care for a pre-existing condition, something you already suffer from, that is huge for all Americans. Yet the Americans who voted against us were not told that story and didn't believe it. And lastly, what bothered them the most, what bothered the opposition the most, the folks the most, about the health care plan was that you are forced, is the word that was used, to buy health insurance. Well, let's look at the other side. If you can have health insurance and you don't buy it, every time you go to the emergency room, we all pay for it.
That's true.
And so the folks who were angry at the budget growing have been given a great lift by President Obama, and they didn't believe it. Lastly, something that in some circles in New York people disagree with me on. I don't believe that the people who follow the Tea Party are bad Americans. I don't believe that they are anti-American. I don't believe that they're anti-minority. What I think happened is that good American folks were led to believe that Obama was a socialist, that the Democrats were all a bunch of socialists, that we were going to throw the country down the drain. And they reacted to their love for our country doing what they did. And our role now is, how do we get back to telling them that they were totally confused by the right-wing radio and a lot of other things that took place?
So what do you think happens to organized labor? Labor was already under the attack from, I would say, everybody, even people in the Democratic Party. Even here in New York City and New York State, believe that labor has too much. And I don't think we have too much. It's like a child who's saved for a crisis. You have just enough to get by.
Well, I speak about labor the way I speak about being a liberal. People say, Serrano, you're one of the most liberal members of Congress. You and Maxine Waters and Barbara Lee, and how can you be so liberal? I say, well, when I started out, and I don't think things have changed, liberal meant that you were pro-working class, that you were pro those who had little in society, that you were pro strengthening those who were in school, that you were pro senior citizens. So if that's what being a liberal still is, then I'm proud to be a liberal. And labor, to me, has one of those great missions in life. Labor defends the working class. Without labor, the working class would be badgered all over the place and beaten up. And people say, well, times have changed. No. When you see members of Congress saying we should not pass another unemployment insurance bill, for unemployment benefits.
Yes.
Well, how can you tell me that if there were no labor unions, you would react differently? On the contrary, it's labor unions that have kept us at least giving a decent wage and life for so many of our workers. One last point on that, where the contradiction comes in. Republicans like to brag to the world, and rightfully so, that we respect our workers, that we have a working class here who is respected and can join the middle class and work well. Well, how do you think those accomplishments happen? You think without labor, organized labor, you could have all of that? No, you need somebody to keep asking for it. So I think that what you're going to begin to see is rollback or attempts at rollback, because labor is not seen as a friend, and labor is always under attack. So just about every issue you can think of that you've won in the past may be on the table again if they have their way.
It's been a pleasure. I'm Gregory Floyd. This is Reaching Out. Thank you. Our very special guest, Congressman Jose Serrano. Thank you.
Thank you.